Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. It's my great pleasure to welcome to today's program Richard Palmer, who's Parcel Sales Director at Uber Freight. And today we're going to talk about the parcel shipping best practices. So I remember when I started as an industry analyst, almost 25 years now, relatively few companies were shipping via parcel. I mean, you can say that it was kind of a niche mode for a small segment of the market. But fast forward to today, and with the rise of e-commerce, parcel shipping is now a critical mode of transportation for retailers and many manufacturers too, especially during the holiday season that we're in right now. So, what is the current state of the parcel shipping market? What challenges and opportunities lie ahead, and how can technology like a transportation management system help companies navigate this environment? So those are some of the key questions we're going to explore in this episode, and it's great to have Richard on the program to share his insights and advice on this topic. So Richard, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here and excited to talk about parcel with you.
Awesome. Well, like I said, looking over the course of 2.5 decades, it's amazing to see kind of not only how important parcel shipping has become for retailers and even manufacturers, and become kind of a critical mode of transportation, but also even just the carrier landscape and how that's changed, as well. So it's very, it's certainly a very different environment today than it was, even let's say even 5 years ago. But so maybe we can start there. I mean, how would you characterize, the current state of the parcel shipping, market? I mean, what's different today compared to even just a few years ago?
Yeah, no, Adrian, you hit it dead on. It's definitely changed, right? So, some time ago, not even too far ago, parcel shipping was pretty straightforward, as you indicated, right? I've got some parcels I need to get from point A to point B. I find a nationwide carrier that can get them, pick them up and get them there. I basically put a label on it and set it at the back door or back dock, and some guy comes by and picks it up, or person comes by and picks it up, and everything seems to work out. But that landscape is, as you indicated, is drastically changed today. Pandemic certainly had a big part of that. During the pandemic, there were particularly retailers and high volume people that the carriers weren't able to deliver the volumes they had, so they had to make adjustments. So as far as what's changing in the marketplace, some of the things here at the end of the year that always come up is the what we call GRIs, or general rate increases that the parcel carriers put out there, which they need to do from time to time. But those have definitely increased, certainly as inflation has and the demand has. So some of the things that are changing rapidly is the cost of parcel shipping, and that's definitely affecting shippers, retailers. And if you look at it, you kind of have a triangle effect of things, with each point kind of pulling people in a different direction, and with the parcel in the middle, right? So you got the CFOs saying, "Hey, our shipping costs are continually rising; they're eating into our profits." Go into the shipping manager or logistics manager and saying, "What are we going to do about this?" So they're kind of being put on it, and likewise, they've got their customer focused person, either their CSRs or the marketing team are saying, customers are demanding free shipping and they want it sooner and faster, right? I always like to say the joke or the statement of, what's the first thing people ask after they click buy now online? And it's, where's my order, right? They have an acronym for it called WSMA, where's my order? But what people really want to know is, when's it going to get here, right? And so there's demands on the shipper to provide that information, what we call delivery options, up front in the web cart. So, do you want to get it today? Do you want to get it tomorrow? Do you want to get it the next day? Do you want to get it 2-day service? Do you want to get it someday service, right? A ground or some other service if it's not important. And there may be prices with those things, and some of those options may be free, but ultimately, the consumer is driving the marketplace with their demands, and the shipper is kind of stuck in the middle of how do I meet all of these demands? Lower cost, faster service, free shipping, and in some cases, white glove service.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think you highlighted a number of different things there, and the free shipping is always, it's funny, right? So we all know that there is no such thing as free shipping. Like you said, the CFOs and those that are focused on the transportation side, are seeing that line item continuously increase, and particularly with the GRIs that you talked about, and the fact that the carriers are becoming much more selective too on what parcel shipments they want to take. I mean, there's a greater focus on their end to really focus on, profitable freight and not just, take shipments for the sake of, just growing volume for the sake of growing volume. They're becoming much more disciplined as well, in terms of, what kind of shipments they take. And then I think we've also seen the rise of, regional carriers kind of filling, like you said, because of the pandemic, because of the carriers, the big guys, the UPS, FedEx, USPS, and even now Amazon. I think I just saw in the Wall Street Journal they supposedly are now the top volume carrier out there with their own network. But because everyone's kind of becoming much more selective, the role of regional carriers has become more important too, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. And that kind of gets into, what is the solution to this, triangle of danger, if you will, that shippers are kind of being faced with, how do they overcome this challenge? And yeah, you hit it dead on. I mean, as we move forward in this, as rates increase and demands increase from the marketplace, and the need to lower, shippers are going to having to seek alternate options, right? Get more creative, understand stuff. And ultimately kind of where we try to come in is from a technology point of view. How can technology really help me solve this problem, as it has many other problems in industry? So yes, having the ability to leverage regional carriers, also same day carriers, right? So the shipping options, or the shipping methods that are being used by a shipper, can also impact the amount of sales they get, right? So you mentioned Amazon, and we all know, if we're looking at something on someone's website and we see the shipping is free, or I have expedited, but what does that mean? What does expedited mean? Does that mean I get it tomorrow? Does that mean I get it in 3 days? Whatever. What does free mean? Whatever. Like, what? I can go to Amazon and get it in 2 days or 1 day, right? And they do a pretty good job at it. So shippers are finding, retailers, especially e-commerce retailers, are finding, maybe they're losing sales because they're not providing those options. But they also have the challenge of how do I fulfill those options, right? If I give a promise to somebody that they can have it in 1 day, 2 day, or same day, how do I logistically achieve that? How do I keep that promise? And again, that's kind of where we try to come in at Uber Freight, in providing a technology service that can, number one, manage all those carriers. So using the majors as well as we call the minors, the regional carriers, and same day carriers to fill that gap, meet that need, possibly even at a lower cost, and while providing those options out there to the marketplace, to the consumer, to allow them to capture those orders.
Yeah, so it sounds like, a lot of challenges on the shipper front in terms of things they're facing, that triangle you talked about, right?
Yeah.
And the different tensions. Certainly opportunity, as I think you kind of alluded to. Amazon does a good job at this, but certainly it's an opportunity for companies too. If they're able to manage that triangle effectively, they can use parcel shipping as a revenue driver, as a way to differentiate themselves, in the market. So I think I think it's interesting to look at it both, not only just focusing on the challenges side of things, with the cost and finding, capacity and so forth, but also the opportunities that are there to drive growth. Now you talked about, technology. So maybe let's dive a little bit more, into that. I mean, how can technology, let's say specifically, a TMS, a transportation management system, help shippers manage and optimize their parcel shipping processes, and what capabilities are most important?
Yeah, happy to jump into that. And you're correct. So leveraging technology, particularly like a parcel TMS that we offer, allows shippers to really take advantage of things that a human wouldn't be able to do, right? Some really good people out there at math, but we learned a long time ago, punching into a calculator for most people is a lot quicker. And same thing on the parcel side, right? So we like to talk about our parcel TMS answers that simple question that most shippers have, which is, how do I ship this, right? And from a human perspective, if I'm in the warehouse and I've got to get something out, and maybe somebody's requested this to be there tomorrow, my natural assumption is I'm going to get a next day label, right? I'm going to get a next day service. I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to put the label on the box, and it'll get there tomorrow. Problem solved. No questions asked. But you have a much higher cost on that. If you look at, and what technology can help is looking at the details of those orders and saying, oh, well, I'm located here in Atlanta. I live on the north side of town. Maybe that order, I'm shipping it from the north side of Atlanta to the south side of Atlanta, or maybe even Chattanooga, which is close by. And that's not going to get on an airplane if I buy a next day ticket, if you will, or label. But I'm going to pay that cost anyway. I can find that maybe I can send it ground if it's close enough based on the zip code proximity, and save a lot of money and still meet my delivery commitment. So those are one example, and I can give others around identifying the savings and how technology can help. And one of the other ones is proximity. A lot of shippers often have multiple DCs or distribution centers where they're shipping stuff out of. Oftentimes you'll find they have one, kind of East Coast, West Coast, and maybe one in the Central or Dallas Fort Worth area. So again, using technology, I can automatically look at those origin and destinations, assuming I have product or stock in all those DCs, and identify the cheapest and quickest place to ship it from, where to fulfill it from. So, and that kind of gets more into the planning, or what we call upstream, right? So I've got a bunch of orders today. It may be 100, it may be 100,000. And what's the best way to ship this, right? So obviously, a human can go through and put them in a spreadsheet and start crunching stuff and maybe work some formulas up and this and that. But a parcel TMS can do those things automatically and help them plan, right? So you've got a bunch of stuff that's due, that's got to get out. You promised to deliver tomorrow. Obviously, we want to process those first, so we can filter those. We can look at the different order attributes on the date, the promise date, and that type of stuff, and start making decisions on best ways to ship this for the shipper, where to ship it from, but also some really key things that provide a lot of savings, like zone skipping, right? So maybe the opportunity to consolidate and optimize stuff either to a specific customer. If they're doing B2B, you may have several orders going to the same customer. So I want to consolidate those. Maybe it's enough that you can put on a pallet and send LTL at a much lower cost. Or you may have stuff going into a specific market. So by analyzing the data, you can see that, hey, I have a lot of stuff going into the Dallas market, or the New York market, or the Philadelphia market, California market, whatever. And I can bundle those together, send them either via an LTL or a full truckload, depending on your volumes, save a lot of money, direct inject those into the carrier of your choice. Maybe that's a regional carrier, maybe it's a national carrier, could be USPS, to deliver that last mile and achieve a lot of savings. Well, also at the same time considering the delivery time, right? The delivery promise that's been made to the customer. And so again, a parcel TMS can, run those calculations, do that type of stuff very quickly. As we talked about before, when they ask the question, hey, how do I ship this? We're going to return that best method, that best service to meet their commitment date and do it at the lowest cost.
Yeah, I mean, it never ceases to amaze me, on the surface, it looks like, because most consumers, right? You if you're going to ship something to a relative or to your kids in college, you may go to the UPS store, you may go to the FedEx, Kinko's or whatever, and it's pretty straightforward. You go in, you put it in a box, they tell you when do you want it next day, or what are the options, and it's a pretty straightforward process. But through all those different scenarios you talked about, I mean, you realize that this is a very complex process, because not only do you have a variety of different carriers now that you're going to be evaluating, you've got a variety of different service options, and each of those service options come with different rates and different breakpoints and different surcharges, perhaps. I mean, that's one of the things we didn't talk about, but there's residential fee versus a business, so just the rating aspect is very complex. So I remember for the longest time, most of the leading TMSs, again, going back 20 plus years ago, they didn't touch parcel. I mean, there was a lot of best of breed standalone parcel shipping solutions, because it was very specialized, and there was that level of complexity. And again, because most shippers at the time were not using parcel, a lot of the leading TMS vendors say, well, we'll just leave that to some of the best of breeds. But now that it has to actually get incorporated as part of the broader mode options and selections, I mean, I think companies are beginning to appreciate, how complex, and the fact that if you're going to try to do this with a spreadsheet or try to go through all the different permutations, you're really going to not get there, right?
Yeah, definitely. That presents the challenge. And that's where technology can definitely come in to help those things. You brought up a point there about the complexity, and just kind of how people think of getting something from point A to point B, and kind of goes back to where we talked, right? In the days past, I'd slap a label on the box. Shipping costs were relatively low. There wasn't much competition, I'll say, between brands or vendors, and overall I was okay with it. But yeah, as the volumes have increased, the complexity has also increased. And most companies, certainly major brands, right? They really, they focus on those delivery commitments. They understand getting the loyalty to their customers. They've looked at the Forrester researches around, consumer loyalty if they mess up an order, right? And you think of like a store, like a retailer, major brand that has a retail store. You walk into a store, they control the lighting, they control the color scheme, they control the music. The personalities behind the desk that are helping you, the bag that they put it at the end, do you want the receipt in the bag, do you want it in your pocket, that really, that level of service. On an e-commerce level, once they hand it off to the carrier, they kind of lose that control. So they're looking to extend that control, if you will, to provide a similar level of service. And the first step is, if somebody wants it tomorrow, I want to get it to them tomorrow. If somebody wants it in 2 days, I'm going to get it in 2 days. I mean, people are busier today, right? People are often traveling. Sometimes it's not a matter of well, if it doesn't get here on Wednesday, it's okay. The fact is, I'm traveling Monday and Tuesday. I'm traveling Thursday and Friday. I'm only going to be home Wednesday, and this may be a high-priced item that I really don't want to, number one, leave on my doorstep for 3 or 4 days at a time, and number two, I need it. Right, I need it. That's the reason I'm ordering it. I need it. So how do I create that retail experience of walking into the store and walking out with a product to an e-commerce situation where you have a similar confidence, right? As consumers, particularly Americans, we have that drive-through mentality. I go by the board, somebody talks to me in the speaker, and 2 minutes later I've got whatever I want in my hand, and I give them the cash, and I get with the product. How do we extend that to an e-commerce situation that consumers are used to, which is the confidence that, hey, I need it on Wednesday. I'm confident this brand's going to get it on Wednesday. I'm comfortable ordering from them, just as we talked about with Amazon.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, because delivery is really one of that last moment of truth, to either delight a customer or potentially lose them for life, right? Like you said, you can do everything right at the front end, right? You can have the nice website from an e-commerce standpoint, provide a competitive price, provide good reviews, so help you make a purchasing decision, make it easy to buy and everything else. But if then that shipment arrives late, or it doesn't get there when you want it, or it arrives damaged, or you've got no visibility to when it's going to arrive, that all then starts to diminish, that experience, and ultimately hurts the brand of the retailer or the manufacturer, whoever it is that's the consumer is buying from.
You're
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was just saying, yeah, you're exactly right. And to be clear, the consumer it's not going to hold the carrier responsible. I mean, they may not even know who's dropping it off, right? They're at work or whatever, they put it at the door, they don't know. So they're going to hold the brand accountable. So it really becomes important for the brand to embrace that. And I'll add one other thing. You talk about as we talk about that white glove, that personal level of service, one of the things we at Uber offer is that Uber Direct, right? So if you imagine like Uber Eats, you're getting your Kung Pao chicken delivered or whatever it is that you're eagerly awaiting. Our Uber Direct offering works from a retail perspective of bringing those items same day or next day from the retailer to you. So oftentimes there's urgent situations or high-priced items that you want that level of security, including chain of custody, right? So if it's an item that's a high price, I want chain of custody that the carrier has picked it up, in this case an Uber Direct driver, and then when they come to the door, we can actually provide a validation with a QR code or a 4-digit code that has to be confirmed before the product is handed over, so that item is actually gets to the person that need to. Sometimes even an ID can be required.
Yeah, no, great example there. So Richard, I mean, we've covered a lot of ground here. I'm sure we can, probably spend another hour, talking about different dimensions of this. But maybe as a way to, wrap up. I mean, when it comes to parcel shipping, I mean, what action should, shippers take to position themselves for success in 2024 and beyond? I mean, and maybe on the flip side, I mean, what's the biggest mistake they can make?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I mean, I'll say I'll start with the last question, right? Biggest mistake you can make is I'll say this facetiously, right? Don't be a know-it-all, is what I try to tell people. Don't be a know-it-all, right? there are certain expertise, we can all Google stuff, we can research stuff, so on and so forth. But ultimately an expert is the person you want to rely on that works in this area, is familiar with what's going on, and knows how to, don't want to use the word negatively, but manipulate the attributes of the parcel shipping market. So that being, carriers, carrier rates, as we've talked about, some of the we call value drivers on ways that I can ship stuff, to kind of put a plan together to ship most efficiently, which specifically is reducing my cost and getting it there on time. As far as things people need to look at, as we talked about, the market has changed, the landscape has changed. Previously, I'd partner up with I call them the two cousins, right? National carriers, or three of them. And, I'm going to go all in with those. Today, things have changed. People often tell me, well, I've got volume discounts, this, that, and the other. One of the biggest negotiating factors with carriers, and they all do a great job, but is the ability to walk away, right? The ability to move your volume to another carrier. So sometimes we look at those volume discounts for people and we find out, well, you're spending an extra X amount of dollars with them to hit this next level or this discount level. They're only discounting your shipments Y amount, which over that volume equals X. Let's look at these other carriers potentially, or regional carriers, or zone skipping, or other things that we can do, and your savings may likely be more significant than that volume discount. So embrace diversity is what I like to tell people. Embrace a multiple carrier strategy. Explore those carriers, work with somebody that knows those carriers and can look at your shipping profile and see that, hey, I've got a lot of stuff going to the West Coast. Here's a couple West Coast regional carriers that I want to at least explore, right? You may explore, you may find that, I'm fine with who I have, right? I'm fine with a national carrier, but you may also find that you can not only get some savings, but maybe get a faster delivery from them, because most of them are doing same day or next day delivery once you get it into their network. So diversifying your carrier mix and really being open to that concept, despite what many carriers convince you of, which is you have to give me all your volume and I'll promise I'll give you the best deal. So diversification around that, in looking at the planning. So a lot of things we've talked about at the beginning is, how can I make use of technology to really ship better and reduce that cost, make my CEO, my CFO happy, ultimately CEO, but make my CFO happy with, combating those rising shipping costs, but also making the customer happy by meeting those delivery commitments, and making my marketing team happy or my sales team happy by actually increasing my conversion rates or my e-commerce sales by providing those delivery options within the cart, to make the consumer feel comfortable that, oh, I can get it on Wednesday, or I can get it on Monday, or I can get it in 1 day, 2 day, or possibly even today.
Yeah, no, a lot of great points. I especially agree with the diversification strategy. I mean, I think right now we're kind of in a down market, if you will. And I think people have short-term memory. When we were at the height of the pandemic, I think companies, for the first time ever in the parcel shipping environment, realized that their assumption that parcel capacity was infinite was deadly wrong. It is not infinite. And so I think that, we know that ultimately, we're going to get into situations where if you're single sourced, you may have some challenges, particularly around, peak demand periods of being able to meet your delivery commitments if the only option you have is, one carrier that you're working with, because you decided to put all your eggs in one basket for those, volume discounts. But, I think from a resilience standpoint, from a risk management standpoint, I think most savvy shippers today, parcel shippers today, recognize that they need to be, diversified for sure.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, we have some high-end, high volume customers, and some of them have 10 to 12 carriers that they're using, right? Including our Uber Direct for same day delivery to meet the needs of their customers. And, as you said, diversify and spread that risk out, make sure they're not put in a bad situation, as several shippers were, as you mentioned, during the during the pandemic. I mean, one of the things I meant to bring up earlier, I'll just kind of touch on it now, is the carriers are going to this concept of dynamic pricing, right? So if you think of when you buy an airline ticket, I go in today, it's X amount of dollars. I go in, 2 days later, it's, Y amount of dollars, and usually that price is going up. And the major carriers are going to this dynamic pricing, which is, again, you asked about, what are concerns for shippers? How do you predict your shipping costs when the price is changing constantly, daily, from these shippers? And again, how do I combat that? Well, you have to use technology to help work through those algorithms and understand what the best way to do things are.
Yeah, no, great point. Well, Richard, again, I mean, we're kind of out of time here, but I want to thank you again for making the time. You provided a lot of great insights and advice on this topic. So again, thank you.
My pleasure. Pleasure to be here. You have a great afternoon, and thank you, everybody.
Great. I want to thank those of you that joined us. If you've got any questions for Richard, you can post them either at the Uber Freight website or on Talking Logistics, and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to respond via that medium. Again, thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.